afternoon. I'm Laura Jones, the Operations and Programming Coordinator for Comic-Con International, and I'm so pleased to be here today to celebrate the career of special guest Janice Chiang. I think there is such a beauty in comics of making something really hard look really easy, and making something really dynamic, and it's just such a powerful, and I think as people who love comics, we know the power of words. And there's no one who knows that power better than Janice Chiang. Her hand-lettering skills are unparalleled. And it's such an honor to have her here. Her career, I mean, the people that she's worked with, the work that she's done, I feel like you guys know you're here. It's beautiful and powerful and it's impactful, and at a time when I feel like I can't say enough just about the beauty of it. And so, I'm sorry. But so on behalf of Comic-Con International and its board of directors, it's my honor to present this Inkpot Award to Janice Chiang. Oh.
This is for all of us, the whole community. I'm just one person. But thank you.
Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. This is our spotlight on Janice. You know, I met Janice exactly a year ago at Comic-Con. She was on my Asian representation panel, and I got to meet her briefly.
Just
Can't hear it too well. I always have that problem not speaking too much. So we got to chatting, and I've learned quite a bit since the last Comic-Con, and I'm so happy to be here to talk about her life and experiences throughout her great career.
The thought ballooning over me is like probably too much information. Good.
So yeah, I guess we'll get right into it. You know, comics have been a huge part of popular culture for as long as anyone in here can probably remember, and you've been in it since as long as I know. When you think of big names in the comic industry, it's usually the artists and the writers, but one of the most unsung heroes of the industry are probably the letterers. So can you tell us how you got into the industry? And yeah.
Okay. How I began in the industry was an accident. I needed a job. So actually, comic lettering found me. I wasn't looking for it. So Larry Hama and Ralph Reese were my mentors in the beginning. They taught me the fundamentals of lettering, you know, what tools, the style. And the best advice I was given was like, look at what's been printed or what came before you and see what you like and imitate it, you know, to figure out what style you want to create. So I began my journey at Neil Adams Continuity Studios, where we've had many great artists come out, like Frank Miller. You know, every major artist probably had gone through there. So Sergio Aragonés was there. And I'm someone with tunnel vision. So whenever they gave me an assignment to practice, I would do it. And I'd run straight to Ralph and, you know, Larry's office, and I'd run out. So years later, people like Bob Wyachek and Terry Austin said to me, yeah, we were at, you know, continuity when you were there. I said, I didn't notice you. The worst thing to say to a guy, right? Because, you know, I was learning and I take care of my business. But my background is in fine arts. And even before that, when I was younger, my father was really great at building things and welding. He had like very good design skills. My mother was very good with handcrafts and such. So we learned those skills and art. So this is a story I love to tell. When we were younger, we started with a power drill. When we were 11 years old, we got the circular saw, you know, the blade that spins. So I'm thinking, yeah, I must have weighed 70 pounds with that saw. So our parents empowered us, that's what I'm saying. So I know a lot of people say, what's it like to be a woman in the comic industry? Yeah, we get special treatment, but we know where we're going. And that's why I'm here today.
Yeah, it takes a lot to succeed as a woman in the industry.
Well, you know, I think the main thing is I was mentored by the men in the bullpen, Danny Crespi, Maury Kuramoto, John Romita. And these men, their families survived the Depression, and they all served in World War II. So when they came back from war, they knew what was important. And when I came into the Marble bullpen to learn production skills and lettering corrections and such, they treated me as a professional. They were never demeaning. They wanted me to succeed. So how I began lettering, like, these are the first 2 issues that went to publication. So you learn by making corrections. Then Danny Crespi would give me a page or 2 to letter, to get the feel. And finally, I got 2 whole issues to do by myself. So that Black Panther page, Billy Graham is the artist and Don McGregor the writer. So what happened was Billy had penciled the lettering and I had to, put in the script. So when I saw the design, the caption that shoots in perspective, I said, it can't be a regular rectangle. It's telling me to go that way. And I was sweating. I said, oh no, they're gonna yell at me. I've never seen anybody make a caption like that. But I'm gonna do it, because that's true to me. And then on the rocks is where you put the credits. So I didn't see this again until the Black Panther movie came out. And there was an article about Billy Graham and his life. And they used that as like a sample of his work. I saw that caption shape, I said, then Sharp Me looks at the rock. I said, oh, okay, I did it. But anyway, so what happened was I spent a year at Continuity and into the Marble bullpen. But the current events of that time, the Vietnam War was going on, the women's liberation movement, and as an Asian American in this country, born during the Cold years, it was a difficult upbringing because of the racism. And if you just look at World War II, oh, you could scroll. Oh, so during World War II, the Japanese people were interned because they were enemy of the country. But these were businessmen, everyday citizens who had no connection to, nefarious deeds. That's a favorite word to describe Asian, or nefarious. We're like Fu Manchu in the miniature. So my mother said to me, that's my mom when she was 18. That's my father, upper left, when they were here in America. And that's my mom and dad with their good friends. So my parents would say to me, don't make waves. Don't be naive. The internment camps are warm and ready for us. If during the Cold War, China turns on the United States. So, when you're giving those parameters, all you can do is like really focus on your academic and artistic work. So, we were model students. This is, we grew up in the back of a hand laundry because that was one of the few occupations the Chinese were allowed to earn a living with. So, even though, this is my parents bought the building across the street, and we got a real apartment. And behind the store, there was no bathroom with a bath. So I remember my mother bathing me in the sink. And then years later, it's like, how did they bathe? With a bucket? I don't know. So you come from a family that, the odds against you, and you make do, you be creative, and you survive. So those are valuable lessons when I came into our industry when it was male dominated. And when I entered it in the 70s, it is like a guild system, but I thought it was like so divorced from reality. Because a lot of the women were taught the lettering and coloring skills, but not like drawing really or writing. And I'm thinking like, aren't the guys reading the newspapers? There's something going on. Women are doing more things. It's like, so I left on my journey. This is Yuri Kochiyama. She's a famous activist. Her family was interned. And a lot of time, what happened, a lot of families lost all their property. It was seized by the government in California. So a group of Japanese American citizens, their husbands served in the army in that famous unit, they went east. They couldn't stay in California. So Mary Kochiyama became an activist with civil rights, with all kinds of issues. And that's my older sister, Faye Chang. She was a well-known poet and activist, and that drew me into, student organizing, protesting the war, Vietnam War. This is from a protest in San Francisco. So across the country, Asian people were saying, watching the news about Vietnam, like, it's like they're just killing people that look like me without, remorse, strafing us, bombing us, as if we were not human. Because that's the thing about racism. You make them the other and take away the human qualities. So a lot of students began organizing on campus. You can hold it there. And, fighting for, third world studies to be recognized. So now we have a Asian American Pacific Islander department in NYU, which my sister, was like a founding member from the original struggles. So these photos are from our struggle of students, professionals, bringing the civil rights movement into Chinatown in the 70s. So that's when I met my husband, Danny. No, we did not meet in a restaurant. We met through organizing protests. So our first big effort was to have Asian and Black and Puerto Rican construction workers hired in this giant federally funded building in the middle of Chinatown called Confucius Plaza. So it was contracted to someone named Donatus, and he had his own crew. And we're saying, look, you raise 3 blocks of tenements, you're building this here, and we can't have jobs and work on the site. So this group of Puerto Rican and Black construction workers came from Brooklyn to teach us how to do that. So when you go out, call it a shakedown, you close the site. So as soon as somebody not allowed on site that's part of the crew, they have to close it down for safety reasons. So one time Danny said he climbed on a crane and the guy said, thank you, I don't want to work today. So it went on for a month and they finally capitulated. They gave us 35 jobs on the site. And from that struggle, we struggled to get a police department that reflected the community. We had no one speaking the language that were policemen. So of course we would get beat up and arrested all the time. So, in the photo, if you look carefully, Dr. Michio Kaku of hyperspace was a big participant in the struggle. So, we had all sectors of the population, all professions coming together. Because we were so inspired by the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King that it's like, it's our time. It happened in the 60s, 70s, we're gonna do it. So, you could next one. So, we didn't have social media back then, right? So how do you spread the word? Word of mouth, telephone calls, knocking on doors. So we had a nonprofit organization called Basement Workshop, and Larry Hama was one of the founding members as well as my sister. So in my family, we were like ducks in a row. Where Faye went, we followed. So when she went to Hunter College, we all followed. When Faye went into the student senate, we all went and became student senators. And that gave me like a really good idea of like the power of one, the power of many. So these posters are related to the struggles when we would mobilize people for certain issues like getting board members from the community. Our friend Janice Chiang was running. So you can see the comic lettering influence, right? So that's where I took my comic lettering skills into the streets. And these three posters I cut the stencils, or I did the photo silk screening. So we would get a crew after Basement Workshop. We ended our day. We would come and screen, we would drive. The next night we would have our postering, teams go out. So this poster with the illustration and some other works, I collaborated with Hart Sui, who became a famous New Wave Hong Kong director of martial arts films, if anyone knows that genre. So talking about full circle, when I started working with John and Cindy King Carpenter, I kept saying, I really love Big Trouble in Little China, because people look like me. they weren't caricatures. And Sandy said, my God, we had to fight them to get authentic martial art experts, you know, people who couldn't do martial arts to be in the film. They wanted people to do yellow face, yeah, to be the actors. So I was watching a director's cut on DVD, and he said, here, Hart Sui, you know, I love his stuff. You know, I was doing the research, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's my friend, and here I am. It's like, who would have guessed? But anyway, so we'd get postering teams out, and we would use like diluted cornstarch for a paste, and we stuck it everywhere. You know, Chinatown, Lower East Side. You could. So this is a police brutality demonstration. A young architect named Peter Yu was waiting on the end of Mott Street in the Bowery, and this policeman said, you can't park there. He said, I'm waiting for my mother to bring the groceries, and he pulled him out and beat him up really bad. He lost the hearing in one ear, and it's like, enough is enough. So this demonstration, the whole community shut down. The garment workers, they were let out of the factories, and everybody just like took to the street. So we closed down Broadway, you know, where the Yankees come down when they win. So we're standing in Broadway, it's like, come on, we're ready to fight. Even the Tongs, the gang kids went out. Everybody was out. So that was one of the posters, and that's a call to, you know, gather and work on that demonstration. You have to time me, or Danny should go like this to me. Okay.
So after such an eventful career outside of comics, what was it like getting back into the comic industry?
Well, the main reason was my son Calvin, who was born. So we were saying, well, how are we going to raise him? It's like, okay, let me go back to comic lettering, see if they remember me. And Danny Cressley was really happy to have me back, and I worked on staff to start. And then I found out you could freelance, you could work at home. I said, really? I'm coming home. So, you know, because we had no Federal Express pickup until like noon that day, I would start my day midnight. So I was sort of like on a 6-hour difference time zone from everyone else. So I had to relearn the skill in terms of the actual the rhythm, the pace, the breathing, the materials. So the first book, Louise Simonson assigned to me. And I was so happy because she was the first woman editor I encountered. So Louise was really encouraging. And the first, the artist was John Buscema, who draws like a Renaissance artist. And I was like, why'd you give me John? So I was so nervous, I penciled the lettering and I came back and inked it. So each page took 2 hours. And I was like, I'm not gonna earn a living this way. Wait a minute, we have Pro White, and we call it snowcake. I could, you know, clean the mistakes and re-letter, which other people did. So the second job was a little faster. I said, okay, we're going down. So it was fine. You know, all the years of, you know, art training and such kicked in. So a lot of these covers are like series I've worked on, and Conan, Red Sonja, Transformers. I did the first one, Transformers. The Transformer balloon with the electric thing I created. Thundercats. You know, what happened is like, Marvel was asked by these toy companies to create books, introduce them to children, right? So they would send the toys for references, and because Calvin was a kid, you know, Danny would always send toys to Calvin. And, you know, what really, you know, I know he loved it, all the kids loved it. I even had the dinosaur one because I liked him. So what was really sweet is when Jean Luen Yang wrote American Born Chinese, he has a scene where they're all playing in front of the television, the Transformers, and then the copy is like, and the toys were all covered in spit because we were making the sound effect. And I just laughed. I said, that's my house. Calvin was like, and then I realized, you know, Jean grew up in California and we're on the East Coast. I said, across the country, same time from the cartoon, the kids are playing with the toys. So this is a side. I'm just so proud of Jean Luen Yang, you know, what he's bringing to our industry and the understanding of our creative abilities. Kung Fu. Yep. So I did Master Kung Fu. So when I was lettering that, his dad was Fu Manchu, right? So I was a little upset about that stereotype being perpetuated. But I had gotten a copy recently, because what I see is I get the artwork. I letter it and it goes to the inker. So a lot of times I don't see the finished book. So there's a disclaimer saying that we don't believe that people Asian people are evil basically. And I never read that because I never saw the whole book. It's this thing keep going down, right? So I felt better about that.
I think Larry was one of the first guys to dispute the yellow coloring of
Yes.
agents in comics, right?
Yes. Larry said, we're flesh tone, thank you. We're not yellow per se. So I did Bill Sienkiewicz's first professional job, Moon Knight. So I was really lucky. A lot of our well-known pros, I was on their first run books. To usher them in the industry.
And you've been doing it for so long. You started when it was a hand-based skill, and with the introduction of computers and making them an everyday thing. What was it like transitioning from a hand skill to computer digital?
Well, I was not, I guess you can roll down. I was not familiar with a computer, and I have the worst sense of direction. You go left, I go right. So I was like, oh no, I gotta figure this one out. So at that time, computers, there was no Genius Bar, there was no Adobe help like clues, you had a manual, and all the knowledge was in the white line between the copy. So among ourselves, we would call and, have you seen this? How do you do that? So that's how we taught each other. And my good friend, John Babcock, brought together hand letters who didn't translate their hand lettering styles into digital fonts. He taught us like the fundamentals. So I owe him my foray into digital work. So, while I was catching up, 4 people plagiarized my work. So I know I'm good if they want to steal it.
And what imitations you ready for my father?
No, not for me. But it's like when that happened, people said, oh, you should sue this and that. I said, no, I knew that I'd have to create a digital body of comic lettering to have some legs to stand on. That's why I'm here today. And I don't see anyone in the audience.
And you've worked through some of the most pivotal times in the comic industry. The 90s was pretty rough.
It was layoffs,
All the layoffs. So how did you navigate your way to keep staying relevant?
What happened was early on, they started getting contracts, letterers, and colors. So when I was beginning lettering, my son was very young, and I would leave. I would white out things that I had to come back and correct, which I didn't. So one senior letter complained, and she called me and said, if you don't prove, we can't use you. So when it came down to contracts, that was stuck in his head, like I was not good enough. So when someone tells me I'm not good enough, I just go to somebody who will appreciate what I do. So that was the best favor ever, because I made all these connections to like DC and any company that would employ me. So when there were massive layoffs, I had networked already. I didn't have to hang on to whoever was left at Marvel and beg, for work. I was like, okay, who's done here? I'll go ask so-and-so. And my friend did an interview in Marvel Fanfare, I think that magazine was. They featured me, so I sent that copy, sent the sample, Dark Horse, and that got me Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the first series they gave to me. So, it's like being resourceful. It came from our childhood. Not crying about it is a waste of time, so you problem solve. And the best thing is like asking. I've heard no before. At the same time, I heard yes. So, I encourage everybody to take chances. Within reason, don't do anything dangerous, but don't be shy. And I think what really helped me was I kept my private life very private, and my business self. That's the one that songs and sings and dance will work. But I only keep people who keep me strong close to me. Anybody who wants to didn't mean to berate me. It's like, go find somebody else to pick on. I was like, not gonna work here. Yeah, so as I was going through, covers of series I'd done, I realized I did the first issue where Venom shows up. It's like, and what it is now, the major movie franchises. So even though letters are not brought to the forefront as, writers or artists, it's like, you're not gonna read the reference material if I didn't do it. So I know you know me, and I know that too. That's good enough.
People know your work. So
Yeah, that's good enough.
You've worked with some of the titans of the industry, and networking is a huge part. Do you have any advice to give to any creators who are trying to make it in the industry?
The main thing, what I was fortunate was, being professional is the number one advice. If you take a deadline, make a commitment, come through. Don't do half of it and pass it on and say, I can't finish it. It's like giving someone a half-eaten sandwich. Do I want to eat it? I don't think so. But, so be professional, know your workload, because somebody else can do it. Somebody else needs work. So I follow that principle, so my reputation is solid. So I was able to, have that history of people, because a lot of us got laid off from Marvel, went to different companies or did completely different livelihoods. So, because I had the good relationships, I could find out where people were. And social, Facebook saved my career. Basically I saw people post about their work, where they were working, and I would message them, and I started attending conventions. So I would do, my own research in terms of who's out there, who's at this company, and introduce myself and say, do you need a letter? But what was difficult during hand lettering the digital, was a lot of major companies created their own internal lettering departments where they had a staff and they didn't use freelancers. So where do you go from there? So the other thing is, a lot of us accept private clients. And I had a lot of good friends come out of the era I never met. They said, so-and-so said, you can handle it. It's like, okay. And then I remember when LinkedIn happened, Larry immediately said, get on LinkedIn, So I had gotten some work through there. And my good friend Him Kartak is doing really well. A book, a series, he told me, you should check it out. It's a really exciting future. He gave me really good news. And I'm so proud of him. I said, Himkar, how long has it been since you graduated NYU Film School? So he goes, 15 years? I go, that's how long it took. So time needs time. That's the other advice I would tell people. And the other advice is take care of your physical being. So when I started lettering, it's like you're sitting there 10 hours a day. So I said, I've got to exercise because by nature I'm very active. So my husband and I started training in gym 40 years ago. So we go 4 days a week. Oh, I can't sit still. I can't sit still. No, it's just for me. That's my playground. And we garden a lot, so I get to dig the holes. So where we live, it's full of rocks. But I'm excited about any creative problem solving, because when you dig a rock, if you get 3 corners, listen, you're mine. I can get you out. But anyway.
Yeah, so speaking of making an impact in the industry, you've worked on some of the most influential and key comics that have happened in the early history. Can you tell us if there's any specific moments that you remember?
Well, Alpha Flight, when North Star comes out as gay. And the way he comes out is, it was during the HIV crisis, pandemic, and he's holding a baby and he said, I'm in the same position as you. Do you remember that panel, Bobby? And Chris Cooper, a good friend, people know him as a birder in Central Park, where that woman tried to call the police to kill him. Yeah, so Chris helped shepherd that storyline, and my wonderful editor, Bobby Chase. You learn so much about someone else's life, their experience, and the wisdom they gain. Yeah, I find that exciting.
Working on the first master of Kung Fu to working on Gene Lin Yang's Shang-Chi, what other kind of differences have you seen?
Segues?
Yeah, segues or
Well, what was really exciting was when I was going to conventions. My first San Diego Comic-Con was 2009. Kevin, did you play like Shattered? It was 2009. And before I came, some friends, Michelle writes it and totally statements like, oh my God, it's a Manor House, don't go. But, you gotta scroll down. So anyway, that was a collection of Asian American creators. Let's see, was it Jeff Yang and Keith Chow, Parry Shen, and there's like a fourth about Jerry Ma. So anyway, these young professionals, which I didn't know about because I was outside the industry, Larry was supposed to do something, but commitment stopped him. So I heard about the book, I Googled it, and I found out they were having a presentation when it was just printed in auditorium owned by Warner Brothers. So Cam and I went down there to hear what was going on with my people. So I was sitting there, and then, you buy a book and have people sign it, so I bought it. So I went up and I introduced myself, and people were like, "You're Janice Chiang?" I was like, oh, "What'd I do?" So they said, "No, when we saw your name, when we saw Larry's name, we saw Jim Lee's name, that meant the door was open. They would accept us." So, I met, many brilliant creators that day. So they had a signing for San Diego Comic-Con 2009 at Jerry Ma's booth where he was selling shirts and stuff. And that's where I met Jean Luen Yang and Sunny Liu together. They were doing their signing. So Keith Chow took a photo of us. That's like a historic photo, because after that we collaborated on the Shadow Hero. And then later on, when Jean was writing for DC and did the interpretation of the radio program about Superman smashing his plane, I led that series. They won like 2 or 3 Eisners and best lists everywhere. So, whenever Jean and I can collaborate, we do. We did the Monkey Prince series. I think that's the next one.
That's a great one.
Yeah, Monkey Prince series with Bernard Chang as here he is, as a principal artist. Right now I'm working on Spirit World with Sang as a non-binary character. She could go between the living and the dead world because she died. So, it's really interesting. It's like using our mythology, our customs, to introduce it to a broader audience, and it's really entertaining. I'm having a lot of fun with that. Ask me a question, because I ramble. I said,
Like
Danny should go like this, or he should ask a question. Well,
Take the time, I'll let you. You have so many great stories.
well, I guess I need another panel. I don't know. Yeah, Harvey.
The representation is more important than ever now, especially with all the movies, the TV shows, the comics, as you can see. And where do you think we go from here with that?
I think we just go up. What's great about our industry is we can tell stories, either historical. I was talking to Larry, Tokyo Road 0 Hour. I worked with Andrea Fortino and Kate Tassenow. So, are people familiar with the story? Tokyo Rose was an American citizen, got caught in Tokyo because she was going to visit and help out relatives when Pearl Harbor happened. So she couldn't come home. So she was taking language classes. She wasn't that fluent. So the Japanese propaganda department recruited her and other women. They wanted to demoralize American soldiers by having a temptress do a radio show. But Eva Tagore loved American music. So her program, she brought records from home and a record player. She would play the music, and make smart remarks. So, the American military, they loved it because for them, it was entertainment, was not demoralizing. Because the Japanese commanders were saying, yeah, when they hear her voice on their 15 minutes family at home, and they won't fight as hard because they want to go home instead of be here. So after the war, she was tried as a traitor and served 7 years in jail. But during her stint as Tokyo Rose, she met a lot of other prisoner of wars who were recruited and became good friends. So when she was arrested, and she did marry a Portuguese-Japanese citizen, but because of the war, the marriage didn't last. So when she was brought to trial, all her friends, from the time she worked in the radio program, came to her defense, her character witness, at the trial, but they railroaded her, and she served 7 years. So the son of her lawyer finally got her exonerated and out of jail. It was a family mission, this is unjust. So it was great is, Andre got 4 sensitivity readers to make sure, we would try as truthfully as possible. So I think good storytelling, it's like with the spirit world, we have an all-Asian creator team, which is I waited 50 years for people to show up. But I think, as in all comics, you get the best people together to tell the story. And, we have to appreciate that we can all contribute together. Because, what I learned in community organizing, you need a united front. People who believe in the same thing, have a goal, and they can come from all different streams. You can't just have it like all Chinese people fight for Chinese. It's like, look at our country, look at our audience. So just the recent years of the polarization, I was thinking, what we have here in the comic community is positive, supportive, and when we go home, we need to bring those, practices and beliefs where we go in our daily lives, because that's the only chance we're going to survive as humankind. And as Mother Nature is teaching us, we better do better. It's climate destruction. But anyway, that's philosophizing. Sorry.
I mean, that's really all the questions I have. If you want to open the
let's
floor
open
up
the
to some
floor.
questions? Anyone's got any?
If you don't have it, people.
As letterers, who were your early influences for comics? Because I think you said something earlier about they told you to kind of choose what you like and imitate it.
Yeah.
So who did you like and imitate?
My favorite letter is Joe Rosen, because he had a sense of calligraphy. A lot of guys would do printing block lettering, but I felt there's something graceful at it. So how amazing Joe was is when we had late comics, we had to letter on vellum, which is a heavy tracing paper. So Joe's lettering was like stained glass. No correction, whiteout, that was a high goal thing for, which I never achieved. I'm still learning. But, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And, they keep us faceless. So, in this book, 4 Fabulous Decades of Marvel, we use a ghostwriter team to show how, it's put together. So I get a call, come in, we're gonna have a photographer take pictures to show how we work. So my husband goes and gets me a special outfit, because, he has more fashion sense than I do, obviously. And, I get dressed up, ready for the shoot. I didn't tell him what happened. The book came home, and all they showed him was my hand holding the pen. It's like the thing, right? So Danny goes, they think so-and-so looks better than you. He was incensed, and I was like, whatever. As long as I'm creating, I'm happy. It was only after, the internet in 2008, they actually saw my face, because Fred Henwick took a picture of me at New York Comic-Con. But, it was I feel that it goes back to being visible and invisible. So I think of Doctor Strange. It's I have a cloak of invisibility, and I'll use it to my advantage. It's not a negative,
You've seen lettering evolve a lot just within your professional career. It's gone from a hand-drawn art style to a more computerized tool now. What do you think the next evolution of lettering is going to be?
Getting uglier. I work with Sandy King and John Carpenter for Storm King Comics on the lettering department. So the fonts I used are based on my hand lettering. I've translated them myself digitally, because I have a sense of the balance, the space, and kerning and lettering that's native to my hand. So it was really sweet. My friend Andy Price said, he was looking at a story I lettering, he goes, I know. I said, what do you know? This is closest to hand lettering font I ever seen anywhere out there. I said, thank you, because it's from me. It's not like somebody stole it and like chunked it up. You know, I actually went through the pain of the weight changes, the height, the kerning, where I feel it's like, that's me, you know? So the way I letter in Illustrator, and I go in the distort window. So every letter, because I design sound effect fonts also, so I distort them. And as in hand lettering, you make the sound effect flow with the art. You don't fight the art, you don't slap it like you're pasting it on. So I actually, every sound effect, I do it as if I'm hand drawing. So the biggest transition from hand to digital, I had to find an analogous tool to my hand tools digitally. So I think I have the most organic, that's why I go for organic style. Because as an artist, I can appreciate what the artists do in color art, and I want to honor that. So let me talk quickly about the mechanics or what I'm looking at when I'm lettering. So I read the art directions, I read the script, I look at the art, how the artist actually interpreted it. So my job is to make sure to lead the reader in the correct sequence of speakers and such. So I look for dead space, that somewhere not really vital to the art or layout. And the pet peeve is a lot of letters, you know, they're not reading the chroma and hue of the color design. And they'll cover a light source with balloon. It's like, that makes everything make sense. So, you know, I'm dodging a lot of things to give you a twofold experience. You can read it firsthand, see the art, stop, come back, look where the art is, and then come back and read the copy. So the simplest way is like, I have to represent the 3D world in a 2D dimension. So, you know, like sound effects, sometimes like, I have to, like a horse galloping, it's like clop, clop, and all.
How do you
So,
translate that from sound?
Yeah, how do I translate? I go to actual sound. I'll YouTube horse galloping, and then I listen and go, what does it feel like? So that's how I create my sound effects. It's like, or you know, or if you see a panel where somebody's punching something, there better be wham slam or something, because in real life there's sound. So I get to create this quote silent soundtrack, as Stanley would say it was. So what we do is so close to filmmaking also. And, you know, storyboards are created for filmmakers as guides. And they're like comics, basically. Okay, are we out of time?
Yeah. We got 5 minutes. I think we've got time for one more question.
Bobby, Nick, help. Bobby, Nick, I have people planted here. These are my good friends from Utah, who we met on a plane coming into San Diego. And we had the greatest time because it was during, you know, when the country was becoming polarized. So on the jumper plane to Salt Lake City, this man sat next to me, a businessman. He treated me like I was a rancid piece of meat. His attitude was like, so when I got on the next connecting flight, I didn't know what to expect, you know. So I meet up with Nick and Bobby, and we start chatting. And there was a seat between me and Bobby, I think. So we all got closer. And you know the flight map where you can follow the plane? So we expanded it where they showed me where they went to fulfill their mission and the countries they visited. I mean, oh God, it was so much fun. So we've been friends since the plane ride.
We'll follow you on to the next question.
Thank you for coming. No, it goes to where I want to be just a person. You know, everyone has a job. It's just a, you know, I'm in print and they collect the data and they have a database. But I think somebody who teaches children, I think they're more important than me. You know, so that's how you meet interesting people and you learn from each other. So thank you so much for coming. I'm honored. Yeah, I planted them there, okay. So do you have any questions or?
I guess I've just been really enjoying learning about your history and everything like that I've never been a part of or anything, and just meeting you has kind of given me the urge to like look into your past and what you've done, and it's just been really entertaining and enjoyable.
Thank you. You know, because the community, okay, we have creators, right? On the credit line, we have the artist, writer,
Editor.
no, let's see, who goes inker, letter, colors, editor. So people know that a book is created by this team. Thank you. We have the pre-production. My son is on staff at DC Comics. Then we have pre-press. you know, and then we have marketers, and then we have comic shops, we have distributors. So it's like 100 or more people are behind us to promote our projects. So I feel people on the credit line should speak to that and thank them. Because I said, without them, we'd be home jet printing comics, stapling, and would you like to read my comic? That's how I envision if we don't all work together. And as with the comic community, let me tell a funny story. So when Justin asked me to be on his panel, I was like, oh, let me check this guy out. Let's talk first. Let me suss him out. So we're talking. And so what do you do? He said, I'm a rocket engineer. I said, okay. So when I had the opportunity to do the spotlight panel and he did a moderator, my good friend Liz Folda said she has a PR business for 20 and more years. And she's the one who propelled me out more publicly where I'm here, because she, through my name, her network of contacts, and people contacted me about doing podcasts and interviews where people see me speak. Because up to then I'm this, right? That hand, right? So anyway, I just lost my train of thought.
We got to chatting about doing the panel and.
Oh yeah,
being
so
in the
anyway,
community.
so listen, you know, one tact is get a big name moderator to attract people. So she goes, what big name do you know? It's like, okay, how about Larry Hama? And he's like, because I've known him since I was 13, so he's my big brother. So I called Larry and he said, yeah, Hasbro's flying me out because I did 300 issues of G.I. Joe. So they wanted me to do an autograph session and a panel. So I said, if I'm free, I'll do it. I said, who else do I know? I said, oh, Gene Luenye. So I text Gene just to mention, and he answers right back. It's like, what? I got hold of Gene because he's so busy,
Yeah,
right?
so
He's so busy. And meanwhile, Justin's like, oh, I'm not sure, I don't know you work that much. I'm thinking, you're a rocket scientist, you can ask me a couple of questions, come on. But you know, he's a big cosplayer, as well as Michelle, his wife. So that's part of our community. You know, we're all in it together. And what's really sweet is when you see someone cosplaying one of the series he worked on, like Ghost Rider. Okay. We gotta
is
go.
that our time?
Is that it?